All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Hello Vaishnavi show right here on RadioNyra 99.9 FM HD4, 101.9 FM, and 1490 AM, and streaming worldwide at RadioNyra.com. So, I'm Vaishnavi, and today's episode is the end of duration of status. So, if you have a child on F-1 student visa at NC State, Duke, UNC, or anywhere in the country, or if you are on J-1 research scholar, professor, or exchange status, or if you work for foreign media on I visa, then this hour is going to be for you. And we know that on July 17th, 2026, the Department of Homeland Security published a final rule that ends something called duration of status. So, and to help us break it down, I'm happy to say that these two they don't need any introduction on this show anymore. Back for their fourth appearance with us, our regular friends from Brown Immigration Law, Rishi Oja and Kelsey Berger. Welcome back once again.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Well, before we jump in, every time you two come on this show, something big has happened in immigration policy since we last spoke. So, Rishi, it has been a busy weeks for you, busy month for you. How is it?
It's been a busy year and a half for us. This administration is just changing the field pretty dramatically in really every sense of everything that we're doing. I know today we're going to be talking about F-1 visas, J-1 visas, I visas.
Yes.
But I think the last time we were here, there were changes with respect to adjustment of status applications. We've seen a pretty dramatic shift with respect to the way H-1Bs are adjudicated. So we're really seeing changes across the entire immigration landscape, and it keeps us on our toes.
So when you hear it for the first time, anything coming from the homeland, how do you feel?
It's almost like what's going to happen today kind of thing. So there's been so much. I mean, I feel like it's been an avalanche for the past year and a half. So, what's going to happen next is always kind of what crazy thing happened today is the way we kind of approach it. But, to a certain point, look, the rules are the rules. And the hope is that this somehow makes our system better and more efficient and makes people comply with what the rules are. Lawyers don't get to pick which rules we should follow. We can challenge them and we can say, hey, these aren't good, and we can challenge them in court. But, it's been an interesting year and a half since Mr. Trump took over.
Yes, it has. So let's start at the very beginning for anyone who has ever had to think about this before. What exactly is, duration of status? Yeah. And why it has been a norm for FJ, and what kind of things are going on for I visa holders as well since, early 1990s, we could say about.
Yeah. So duration of status, it kind of had like two starting points, but it's been consistently a thing, especially for J's, F's, and I visa holders since 1983. So for that time period, those types of visas have had the luxury of duration of status, which basically all that means is that as long as the person holding an F or a J or an I visa is maintaining that status, going to classes, completing their program, then they're able to remain here in the United States, indefinitely isn't really the right word, but without a hard, expiration date.
And they haven't had to do anything to extend that status, right? So if you're going, for example, if you're in your bachelor's program and you finish up your 4 years of bachelor's degree and you want to go and move to your master's degree, you don't have to file anything extra with the immigration service. You just maintain your status. So as long as you're taking your 12 credit hours per semester, you're considered to be maintaining status. So that's kind of, you're allowed to be here as long as you are complying with the requirements of the program. And that could be endless. I mean, I talked to somebody, I think last week, and this week, they've been in F-1 status since 2014.
Wow.
And since 2014, this woman entered the United States from India, pursued her bachelor's, got her master's, finished her PhD, got OPT between all those time periods, and now is pursuing her second PhD as a way of just staying in status. But that entire time, since 2014, since she came, she hasn't had to file anything. She's been in status.
So starting September 15th, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you think that the open-ended admissions will disappear?
It will. That's what the government is going to be doing. So starting September 15th of this year, like you said, there are going to be some pretty drastic changes to this type of, to the F visas, to the J visas, and to the I visas. There's going to be a transition rule for those, especially students who are inside the United States, maintaining their status, and, J's as well. But those who are inside the United States, maintaining their status as of September 15th of this year, they will still, be able to hold on to the 60-day grace period. They will still be able to be here in the United States. The difference is that duration of status will go away, and it's going to automatically convert to a hard deadline. That hard deadline will either be the I-20 program deadline or the DS-219 for J's deadline, or the work authorization date deadline, whichever one's later. The caveat is if that program is supposed to be longer than 4 years, immigration's going to say, maximum amount of time we're going to give you 4 years. If you need to go past 4 years, you got to file for an extension of status.
So they need to go back to India and then file it again? Like how does F-1 visas work?
Yeah, for F-1 specifically, in order to extend out the status, if they want to stay here in the United States, because right now, especially with India, those visa wait times are really, really long. So for extending their status, they would have to file a form called 539. And basically all that says is, hey, I've been maintaining my status. I still have the intent to go back to my home country, whether it be India or a different country. I have the financial means to support myself while I'm here in the United States temporarily completing my program. But my program is actually longer than 4 years. And the same thing for J's. A lot of these programs are 5 or 6 years. And so I need a little bit of time. And, that's how they're able to extend it out if they're here in the United States. Alternatively, if they have a valid F-1 visa, then they can leave the United States and come back in and get that new date, with that valid visa, or they can go apply at the consulate for a new visa, come back in. But again, long wait times, there are some risks and whatnot.
What the government's indicated is that by implementing this rule, it increases the government's ability to determine whether or not someone's maintaining their status, whether they're in the United States lawfully, right? So, for example, if someone's in the United States and they're in school, and while they're in school, they commit a crime. The government, if your durational status, right, that example from the woman that came in 2014, if she committed a crime in 2017, she's never interacted with Homeland Security all the way now, 12 years later. So there's no way for Homeland Security to ever figure that out unless by chance the police department contacted them. And so what the government says is, well, this gives us an opportunity to determine whether or not someone is actually going to school, whether they're working without permission, whether or not they committed a crime, things like that. So it's kind of a law enforcement action. And it just requires somebody to interact with the government more frequently for the government to determine whether or not they're complying with their status.
Right. So like for 4 years, like a long run. For example, any courses which takes like 5 years or 6 years or 7 years, like many PhD programs or, medical residencies and so research fellowship, J-1 visas holder. So that run longer than 4 years.
Right.
So how about them? What happens to someone who enrolled for those programs?
Yeah. So again, the maximum time period that immigration is going to give somebody on one of these statuses is 4 years. So of course, like you mentioned, there are a lot of programs that exceed those 4 years. So basically those people are going to have to request to extend out their status with evidence that, hey, my program is 4 years, 5 years, whatever the length is, and show that they have good reason for extending out the time. It can't be, oh, my program's 4 years and I've just been taking a really long time to finish it. The government's not going to accept that. It has to be legitimate, like the program length is intended to be more than 4 years.
Okay.
Or they can leave and come back.
Or they can leave and come back.
They can leave and come back.
Yeah.
So with that visa.
on the same visa?
Well, it depends on if your visa expires. But the idea being is the government wants you to interact with the government at some point. 4 years maximum is we're going to give you without interacting with the government. So at that 4-year period, when you're hitting that 4-year expiration date, you can either file for your extension without having to leave the country or leave the country. If you have to go get a new visa, you go get a new visa and then come back in. So one of two ways you can get more time to be here.
Okay. So for the families, who might not have heard about the words called Form I-94. So why should they care about the date on the government arrival records? Because most of the people, they think that the stamping on passport and the records on I-94, they don't match, and then they become out of status.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So,
and that's going to become increasingly important.
Right.
I think that, when you're looking at this, especially with the transition, especially with folks who are already here in the United States on September 15th, they're going to have to look at several documents. For students, they need to look at their I-20 document to see when that program end date is, because if they're here in the United States, the I-94 is not going to update. So still pay attention to that, but it's probably not going to update. They need to pay attention to the I-20. They need to talk to a licensed immigration attorney, their DSO, just to clarify all of this, because it's very complex and confusing for everybody, including the practitioners right now. But for folks who have left and they've come back in, they've traveled, and it's after September 15th, then yes, absolutely pay attention to the I-94, because there's going to be an end date that they need to pay attention to either leave the United States by that date or have already filed for an extension of status or a change of status, whatever it may be.
And this is often confusing for people. So there's really two things that someone needs to pay attention to. One is their visa validity, and the visa is the little sticker on your passport. And the other one's your I-94. The sticker on your passport simply tells you when you can travel in and out of the country. It doesn't tell you how long you're allowed to be here. It just says until this date, this person can come in and out of the country as an F-1, as an H-1B, and whatever your status is. Once you're inside the United States, your I-94 then takes over and tells you how long you're allowed to stay here. So we'll have clients that say, well, I have a 10-year B1, B2 visa. That means for 10 years, you can come in and out of the United States. But that doesn't mean for 10 years, you're allowed to just stay here, right? A B1, B2 visa, when you come in, your I-94 is going to give you a maximum of 6 months to be here, right? Same thing with respect to an F1 or a J-1. Someone might have an F1 visa for 4 years. Their I-20 might only be good for 2 years. Right. It could happen. It doesn't happen very often, but it could happen. That says, well, for the next 4 years, you can come in the United States as long as you have an I-20 that's going to allow you to be here. Now, if their I-20 expires after 2 years, and after 2 years, they're done. So there, in terms of, do you need to pay attention to your I-20 or to your I-94? That doesn't go just for F1s and J1s and I's. That goes for everybody that has any kind of non-immigrant visa. Everybody needs to pay attention to their I-94.
Right. Okay. With the shorter grace periods, whatever they have. So say their visa is expiring in next month or maybe, in 10 days. So what's your recommendation for the people, how early or how soon they should at least go back, or maybe, they should inform to immigration? So
if somebody's status here in the United States, the authorized period that they're permitted to remain in the United States is expiring. Ideally, they file for that extension way in advance. So at least, maximum you can file 180 days ahead of that expiration. And because of long processing times right now, do it. File as early as you can. If for whatever reason you're looking at your status and you realize, hey, it's actually expiring like very, very soon, within, in a month or a week, you need to talk to an immigration attorney immediately, talk to your DSO. That way we can get something filed for you. That way it's timely filed. The protections remain, and they can stay here, or if they need to travel out, then they need to leave the United States, by the date that it says that they need to leave by.
The more time you can give us, the better our chance of being successful.
Right.
Okay. Most of the cases we see that it's very less time they see, and they realize that, oh my God, and they don't have a clue what to do.
The hardest circumstances are, I just talked to a gentleman today where I need to get this filed by August 13th. Wow. Well, August 13th is 2 weeks from now, right? And it's not as if my desk or Kelsey's desk isn't filled up with other people that want to get their filing submitted. So, being able to address a problem early gives us our best chance of being successful. The less time we have, the harder these things are.
Wonderful. So let's continue this right after 2 minutes of break.
You're listening to WCMC FM Holly Springs, 99.9 FM HD4, W270 DT Durham, 101.9 FM, WDUR Durham, 1490 AM.
लाइफ की धुन तो बजाओ 99.9 नायरा में खो जाओ लाइफ की धुन तो बजाओ 99.9 नायरा में खो जाओ देसी पक्का देसी 99.9 नायरा में खो जाओ
Nyra 101.9 FM Raleigh Durham. Also available on 99.9 FM HD4 and 1490 AM. Pakka Desi.
99.9 नायरा में खो जाओ पक्का देसी
All right, welcome back to Radio Nyra. You're listening to 99.9 FM HD4, 101.9 FM, and 1490 AM. And this is live show Hello Vaishnavi with your host Vaishnavi, and we have guest Brown Immigration Law Kelsey and Rishi. Well, moving to the next question.
Sure.
Now let us talk about OPT and STEM OPT because so many of our engineering and computer science families live and breathe by this timeline. So, is there any protection built in for students currently on or about to start OPT?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing to note is, the program end date for students, especially on the I-20, it does not list OPT time, right? It's just the program start end. And then if you get OPT, that's kind of something extra. So basically what this rule is saying is that if you want to do OPT, you're going to have to submit a formal request to, extend your status to use your OPT, but that request has to be filed with immigration.
So, I mean, they need to file I-7.
You're really filing two things, right? So one, you're filing for your OPT work authorization card.
Right.
Plus, you're filing to extend your F-1 status. What happened before, remember, durational status would just say as long as you have an I-20, you're considered to be in status.
Yes.
So all somebody would do was they would have their bachelor's degree I-20, and then they would go to OPT, and you get an OPT I-20. But you didn't have to file anything with immigration. The only thing you had to apply for was your work permit.
Right.
Now you have to apply for the extension of your F-1 status because you're going from one I-20 to another.
Yes.
And you have to file for your work authorization card. So you're really filing for two things.
And supposedly immigration's going to, process both of those concurrently. What we don't know is that generally the processing time for the extension of status form and the processing time for the work authorization card are different. So we don't know which processing time is going to be the controlling processing time, but presumably immigration has to approve that extension of status before they can even look at the work authorization.
This could be a mess.
Oh,
It probably will be.
It probably will be. But, usually someone can get their OPT card relatively quickly. But, I-539 filings usually take quite a while. Can somebody, and this is a kind of an open question, we're not sure that the answer is, can somebody get a work authorization card while their extension of status is pending? The hope is yes, so it doesn't disrupt somebody's ability to go out and work. But that's one of those, we're going to have to see what happens with this. And immigration has clearly said you can't premium process it. So even if you want to pay the extra fee to get an answer back quickly, you can't.
Do you think it will confuse employers when they're hiring?
Probably.
Yes. I mean, this is new, right? Like they've been in a routine in a system since 1983 with this kind of process. And now all of a sudden the government's saying, hey, we're going to switch things up on you. And oh, by the way, none of this is clear. So yes, I think, employees and employers alike and schools are going to be very confused, understandably.
And the challenge is that, an employer is a software company or it's a law firm or it's a radio station. They're not immigration attorneys. Most employers don't know the first thing about immigration law. All they've had to figure out is, can I hire this person or not? And now they're going to have, all these extra loopholes to try to jump through to figure out, is this person even lawfully in status or whatnot? So I think this is going to be a brand new world for everybody.
Yeah. And I think it's going to have an impact too on the economy because so many, this might deter employees or employers from wanting to go through this process when it's so complex and there's an additional pretty significant analysis that they have to do in order to determine someone's work authorization.
Well, so let's talk about, the restrictions, the academic restrictions, the new limits or changing majors or transferring schools.
Yeah.
So what do you see there?
So the first thing that we saw is when you're below the graduate level, right? When you're an undergrad, changes are rare. So when you're coming into the United States, oftentimes we'll see people that come in within the first year, they want to change their school.
Right.
As of right now, that's not permitted.
Yeah.
And so
I was going to say, in addition to changing schools, and this is normal for first year program folks, they might want to change their major. They might want to change the course or the level of their program. And, under this rule, none of those changes are permitted within the first year of that program for below graduate level studies.
Give us some case study, like what kind of scenarios?
I give you a good example. When I was in undergrad, I started off as a biology major, and I then changed to political science. if I was a first year, I wouldn't be allowed to make that change, right? So if I came in to do a bio program and I wanted to change to something entirely, or if I wanted to change my school, wouldn't be allowed to do that. If I wanted to go from NC State to UNC, I'm not sure how easy that would be doing it from freshman to sophomore year, but assume that I wanted to do that, you can't. And that could, say you want to change due to cost. That something became much more expensive, and I couldn't afford going to NC State anymore. And so therefore I want to move to, Wake County Community College. I can't make that change.
You move, states. We see a lot of people, they start, and I just had a client who was living in Ohio, decided the weather is not for me. No shame. That's freezing. And they moved to a different state where it was warmer. And had that person done that, or anybody else wanted to do that in their first year, you can't do that. You're stuck where you're at for that first year.
The other change that we're seeing is at the graduate level, you cannot change educational objectives. So I think what this is designed to do is reduce the number of people that finish up their master's, do their OPT. If for whatever reason they don't get selected in the H-1B process, they'll go back for a second master's.
Right.
That's now going to be problematic.
Right. And that's what we discussed, kind of today and looked into is lateral changes or going down levels. That's not going to be permissible. If it's just a natural progression and they're, moving up in the matriculation, that's okay. But, some people want to do a master's, like what you were saying, their master's, that's not going to be allowed.
Second masters are probably going to be going away. And the concurrent CPT, day one CPT that people do, we're probably going to see a way less amount of that.
Okay. So now I think the students should know that what they're going to elect, because they cannot just change the university.
You can't just change it willy-nilly.
Yeah, more pressure and a lot more thought, process in deciding, your course of your academic career. But I think it's important to note for those people who have in the past had multiple, masters, or, they did a master's and went back and got like another bachelor's or something. This rule, these restrictions are only going to apply to programs that are completed after September 15th of this year. So if it's completed September 14th of this year or earlier, it's okay. This is not going to affect them.
They're good. They're good.
Essentially, anybody that's probably already graduated is fine.
Yeah.
But anybody that's starting school, here in the next couple of weeks, they're going to fall under these new laws.
Okay. Now let's talk about J-1 exchange visitors, research scholars or physicians or professors. So, so is the J-1 change basically a mirror of F-1 change, or are there differences,
Yeah, it's pretty much the same. I mean, same kind of deal in terms of, if they're in the United States on September 15th or if they're abroad, same kind of changes. But the grace period for J-1s was always 30 days. So that part's not going to be changing. That will remain the same. But in terms of needing to extend out their program, because of the maximum authorized period of stay in the United States is at max 4 years, then they would have to go request to extend, their program. I think that's going to be the biggest change, especially for J-1s, as we discussed, where programs are usually longer than 4 years, or a lot of them are longer. And it's not guaranteed that the government's going to approve that extension.
Okay. But J-1 has so many, subcategories.
Tons.
So like research scholars or professors.
There's so many.
Student.
I joke that it's a trash can visa. If you're not sure, you could probably figure out a J-1 to somehow fit in.
Does this rule, treat all of them identically?
As far as we know right now, and this could change, it's a blanket application. So it applies to all categories of Js.
Okay.
And J-1s, you can have camp counselors, you can have au pairs, you can have short-term scholars, you can have students, trainees, interns. There's all different kinds of foreign medical graduates. So Js are a really, really big category, and they fit all different kinds of people. If you're like a work travel visa over the summer, if you go to the beach over the summertime, and if you go into one of these little beach shops, more times than not, you're going to run into somebody who's on a J-1. They're here on a work travel visa. That visa is usually good for 3 or 4 months, and then they have to leave the country.
Right.
If you have somebody who has an au pair from South America, Central America, places like that, they might have a status that's good for 18 months. An intern is good for 12 months. A foreign medical graduate could be 6 years. So there's all different kinds. But the point being is each J-1 has a DS 2019 form. When that form is going to be expiring, they're going to have to get a new one if they can, and they're going to have to file for an extension of status, or they're going to have to leave and come back in.
So the travel details feels like, single most practical warning for this whole episode. So if someone is already here in, DR status right now, so in July or August 2026, now July almost done, and they're planning to trip, home from September, what would you recommend them?
Yeah, I mean, be back in the United States no later than September 14th. You need to be here maintaining your status by September 15th. And so, in order to get some of those protections and the transition protections, be here in the United States. Like, I'm sorry if that cuts your trip short, but be here. And, even if you are here, you are maintaining your status. If you decide to travel afterwards, let's say a few weeks later, like for the holidays, I want to go home, makes sense. When you come back in, now you're going to have the new rules are going to apply to them. So if you had that 60-day grace period because you were here in the United States maintaining your status on September 15th, you travel for December, you come back, now your grace period's now 30 days, and your authorized period to stay might your authorized period to stay might shrink as well with that.
And I think most of the people won't fly.
Right. So maybe have your family come to you this year and, don't leave.
And also think about everybody else is probably going to be trying to come back on September 14th.
Right.
So you might want to plan accordingly because there's going to be a gigantic rush. I mean, I'm just thinking about
those lines
during
long.
During COVID, they said, the borders are closing on this date. So there's a mad rush to try to get here. So, plan accordingly. Maybe you want to come back on the 10th or the 11th or something like that. Just might make travel a little bit easier.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other information for J-1 visa candidates?
I think J-1s, it's pretty much the same. I think the only thing to note is that, the program date that's listed on the DS 2019, that might not be your authorized period of stay date. Again, 4 years. That's the magic number.
Or if your passport expires early, it could somehow cut down your time. So, to the extent that it's possible, just kind of pay attention to these things. I mean, quite frankly, these rules might all change tomorrow for all we know. But to the extent that, if you can be kind of tuned into what's going on with J-1s or F-1s or any of these other visa categories, sometimes you're inundated with an overflow of information, but do your best to try to keep up.
All right. Let's move on to I visas.
Sure.
Representatives of foreign media. So this category doesn't come up often on immigration shows, but it matters to our community too, like journalists, correspondents, and media professionals working here on I visas, including some of our own industry colleagues. So what's the fixed period, for I non-immigrants, and why is it so shorter than F and J?
Yeah. I mean, this one's a little bit different. I mean, it's the same in that in order to, continue your I status, if you're already here in the United States, and if you're here on September 15th, 2016, that's the magical date, and you've been maintaining your I status, then your status is going to go from duration of status, and it's going to automatically convert as long as you're needed. You can be here in the United States to complete your assignment, but that expiration date is going to be no longer than May 13th of 2027. So you got some time. But it's not obviously as long as the duration of status. I's
are kind of interesting visas insofar as they're the one visa, like I's don't come with an I-20.
Right.
They don't come with the DS 2019. So they're the one visa classification that really just kind of had an open-ended duration. You didn't really have any sense as to how long somebody really was truly allowed to be here because they were durational status. And, are you here on assignment? Sure. How do you figure that out? So this is the one category I thought this kind of makes some sense because you had folks in the United States. I mean, I think one of my colleagues had an I visa holder who'd been here for about 4 or 5 years. It's just kind of floating around. And sometimes they have an assignment, sometimes they don't, and they didn't really have a sense as to how long they're allowed to be here. So I think for I's, when you file, when somebody applies for an I visa, they're going to have a better understanding of here's a project that I'm on.
Right.
They're going to have a more documentation to show here's the story that I'm covering. Here's how long I expect to be in the United States for, as opposed to I'm going to the United States for a purpose of being a journalist, and I'm just going to be here, for an indefinite period of time. That's just not going to fly.
Right. Now, if for whatever reason their program goes longer than May 13th of 2027, then like the F, status and visas and like the J's, they're going to have to file a formal extension with the government. Now, the only caveat with this is for nationals of China, their date is a little bit different. So they, again, duration of the assignment, but no longer than December 14th of this year of 2026. So that's the only thing
They
to
got
note.
cut short.
Okay, tell us about the case. Say someone applies for I visa from India and they get the visa and they don't fly immediately. However, they take, say, an year, to travel. So do you think the people who are in that position, that status, will they have any immigration issues when they fly and when they have immigration?
Well, I think a lot of this is going to depend on what they file with the immigration service, right? So when you're applying for an I visa, your employer in the United States has to file an application with the immigration service. That gets approved. In the past, it's just durational, right? So you don't have to have any fixed end date. Well, if you're coming to the United States to cover a specific story, let's say somebody was coming to cover the World Cup, right? The World Cup has an end date.
Right.
In the past, a journalist could just come in and say, I'm covering the World Cup, but they could just still be here, even though the World Cup finished, 2 weeks ago. Going forward, I think an employer is going to have to do a better job of articulating, hey, this story that this individual is covering we're going to need them in the United States until this particular date. And that visa is going to be tracked to that particular date. So if you're coming to the United States to cover the upcoming NFL football season, right? That season's going to run all the way through the beginning of February or something like that.
Yeah.
If someone decides, all right, well, I got approval to come to cover the football in the United States, but I'm not going to go there. I don't feel like going until June or July of next year. Well, they're not going to be able to because they're not going to get a visa until June or July of next year. They're going to get a visa until the expiration of the calendar. So I think they're going to tie these visas much more closely to specific events. I think, again, it's one of these things where we're going to have to wait and see and see what it looks like. But I think they're going to be much more tied to specific end dates. And they're not going to be as open-ended as they have been.
And I think like some other visas too, I could see immigration saying, hey, we want an itinerary of what you're going to be doing here in the United States, where you're going to be, on what dates you're going to be doing XYZ project and where. I could definitely see them asking for that documentation.
And how about the media organizations in US and correspondents? What should their compliance team should be working on?
Yeah, I mean, I think probably the same thing, just, noting that for the most part, people, need to be here, or they can be here until their assignment's completed, but they cannot remain here longer than May 13th of 2027. So 180 days before that date, if they need to still be here past that date, they should look into filing a formal extension of their status. That way, their coverage of their assignments not interrupted if they have to remain after.
And I was going to say, I think media organizations are just going to have to be more specific in terms of why they need somebody here for what duration of time. Right. You can't just be, I'm here to cover, current events in the United States. That's from now until the end of time. So I'm here to report on, the Trump administration. Well, okay, that you're going to have a status for the next 2.5 years. At that point, be prepared to be able to explain, well, I'm now transitioning to this new thing or whatnot. So I think you're just going to have to do a lot more specifics in terms of what exactly somebody's going to do in the United States. And that kind of tracks with a lot of other kind of visas that we work on. That if someone's coming here as a performer, they would have an itinerary that says, well, I have performances for the next year, and then they're going to leave the country. So I think that reform kind of makes some sense.
Right. Okay. Well, if you had to name the top 3 red flags, the situations where someone should call an immigration attorney immediately rather than
3
waiting,
Right. Yeah.
what would be that?
I think I think another big change with this regulation and rule is that folks can start accruing unlawful presence, which basically means immigration could identify them as not being here in status, and that can have implications where once they leave, they might have a restriction for from being able to return to the United States. So I think red flags would be I-94 is expired, I-20 or a DS-219 is expired, or someone's here and their passport's expired. I think that's kind of the key word is things that have expired that are related to their program.
Yeah.
And after September 15th, I think that those are going to be really key points of analysis when we're speaking with folks.
And I mean, not without trying to sound self-serving, immigration is just making these things harder and harder to do on your own. And that's not for the purpose of having somebody pick up the phone and call our office. I think it's more of a reflection of these things are just getting harder.
And consequences more
and the
severe.
consequences are much more drastic. So I mean, I always I think about it in terms of you can fly a plane by yourself if you want to. Doesn't mean it's a good idea. You can do heart surgery by yourself if you want to. It doesn't mean it's a good idea. I don't know anything about cars. I could try to change my oil if I own my car if I want to, but I need to be prepared for crashing my plane or, destroying my heart or ruining my car.
Right.
And those are the kind of the same consequences that you have if you make a mistake on some of this stuff, then the consequences tend to be pretty severe insofar as, can you remain in the United States? Are you going to be able to finish your studies? Am I going to ruin my ability to finish my, residency program? Those kind of things. So again, it's not designed to sound self-serving. It's just, the consequences have never been as a kind of
high stakes,
high stakes as I feel like they've been since with this administration.
Okay. Well, you were saying that if they go, after September 15th and they come back, the shrinking in their duration will happen, the period. So what if, they have the course left more than, what the duration have been? Yeah. So how would that case would be, taken care of?
Yeah, I mean, let's say they come back and it's a J and their program's 6 years and they've, they're coming up on that fourth year because that's what their period of stay is likely to be changed to unless, they have an expiring passport or something different. Talk to a licensed attorney and let's strategize it together and figure out, okay, when do we need to file for an extension? What's going to be the reason for filing for an extension? What kind of evidence can we support? That way, they're able to continue the program. Whether it be J or, F program.
They're just going to have to file for an extension.
Wow.
If they get cut short on time, one of the new rules is that if you have a family, right, you're married with 2 kids.
Right.
If for whatever reason one of your kids has an expiration on their passport that's 2 years shorter than everybody else, then everybody gets cut short 2 years. So that's one of the things to think about is like, okay, one nice thing is you can file the whole family on one application, but if one person's short, that's going to shorten everybody. So that's one of those things to strategize about. All right, well, does it make sense to file everyone together? You're probably going to want to file 2 applications, one for the entire family to get as much time as you can, and the second one for that one child who might be a little bit shorter, and then you're going to have to extend that one child. So those they're little things like that, but they're important because if you have a 4-year program and I didn't even think about it, my kid's passport expires in a year and a half. Well, I just cut myself short 2.5 years,
Right?
And that that obviously
it
has an impact.
Really scary.
Yeah, it does because again, this is a big change. But I think going to Rishi's point is, you have to just now be more mindful of when especially if you're here with your family, be mindful of when does everyone's passports expire and, renew it as soon as you can. That way, hopefully the renewal would come in, the passport, is all good. And then everyone can file for the extension together. That way you only have to pay one filing fee versus multiple.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, to summarize this, let's play rapid fire, which is my favorite part. All right. So if you're already in a DRS status today, your I-94 is automatically corrected to a fixed date on September 15th, 2026. Is it true or false?
Yeah, I mean, ideally, according to this rule, on September 15th, 2026, if you're here, it's going to automatically convert.
The 4-year maximum admission period applies to both F-1 and J-1 non-immigrants. Is it true?
Yep.
Correct.
That's true.
I visa holders get the same 4-year cap like F and J.
That is false.
Yeah, I
That
was going to
is
say
false.
that's not for eyes.
Eyes have the different time. So for the most part, it's May 13th, 2027 is the cap on
Or
that.
if you're from China, December
14th of this year.
Okay, so F1 post-completion grace period is being extended from 30 to 60 days now.
Opposite.
F1.
It's going
It's
from
opposite.
60 to
Yeah.
30.
That's
30.
false.
Yeah.
All right.
They're not extending anything.
Yeah.
Everything's coming down.
Shrinking.
It's getting everything's shrinking.
Absolutely. So if you could tell every, the Indian subcontinent family living here one thing, what would that be?
Prepare early. Like I said, the more time you can give us to try to resolve a problem, the easier it is to resolve. Early preparation usually gives us plenty of wiggle room to get things done. And I guess two things that I would say: don't panic.
Yep, that's what I was going to say.
Right. I talked to a client half an hour ago. And you could just hear concern and fear in their voice, despite the fact that they had absolutely nothing to be worried about. Yeah. Most things are fixable. And so to the extent that try to avoid the panic that being online creates and, the news is inundated with all these stories of crazy stuff that's happening. And it's not to say these crazy things aren't happening.
Yeah.
Get off your phone, turn off your TV, go outside, enjoy things with your family and your friends and things like that. Don't let this stuff ruin or control your life, because if you do, then your life is going to pass you by.
And there's a lot of misinformation too out there. So if you're really overwhelmed, really confused about what's happening, that's fair. Just talk to somebody. Just talk to a licensed attorney. That way we can kind of help dissect and process all these changes and whether or not they apply, or to what effect they apply.
I always like this statement when you say, relax.
It's okay.
Don't panic.
Don't panic. Yeah.
I think in all our episodes, this has been the statement.
Yeah, right. I say it again.
Even with immigration, there's a lot of changes.
Yeah.
It's very overwhelming. Don't panic. We're here to kind of help sift through all the chaos.
All right. So before I let you both go, give us 3-step homeworks, who should every FJ or I visas holders or their sponsoring family or employers do this week, or maybe for, coming weeks.
Yeah. I think the first thing is check your passports. Check your I-20s and DS-219 forms. Just be familiar with those end dates, and then talk to your DSO and an immigration attorney.
I was going to say the same thing. Download your I-20, download your DS-2019, and actually look at it. I can't tell you the number of clients I talk to and say, "Hey, do you have your I-20?" "Oh, I don't have it. It's somewhere."
Yeah.
And you're not going to have a sense as to when the expiration date is. And the other thing is, the government's not going to go out and tell you. The expectation is that people need to know when their status expires, and if they don't, ignorance of the law is not a defense. Right. So the expectation is going to be that you're in the United States on an F-1, you should know when your program end date is. So go find that I-20, go find that DS-2019 and figure out when that expiration date is, and then, let's plan accordingly.
And I think to add to that too, another document that you should download and be mindful of is your I-94, which you can download very easily on the CBP website. And then in terms of kind of these automatic changes, if you're not really sure what date it could be changing to, allegedly CVIS is going to be updating it automatically. So that's why I say talk to your DSO, especially if you're here on a student visa. That way, you can all be on the same page.
Tune into the Hello Vaishnavi podcast and radio show, and we'll try to give you updates as often as we're in here.
Definitely. And I think you know whom to reach out. It's Brown Immigration Law. Please share your contact details or, emails so that they can, all the listeners, whoever is really in need of, on F1 or J-1 or whatever visas, the immigration visas, they want to reach out to, please do feel free to share.
So I am Rishi Oza, and my wonderful colleague is Kelsey Berger. We work at Brown Immigration Law, and our phone number is 919-225-3963. Our website is brownimlaw.com. That's BROWNIMM law.com. We're here. We're in Florida. We're in Ohio. We have clients nationwide. So if you have immigration questions, even if they're not about F-1s, J-1s, Is, if it's immigration, we do it. It's the only practice of law that we handle. We don't do contracts or traffic law or divorce or anything like that. All we do is immigration. So if it's an immigration question you have, give us a ring.
Wonderful. And to the family listening on 101.9 FM and 99.9 FM HD4 and 1490 AM and streaming at RadioNyra.com. You're not alone in this navigating all this process. So share this episode with someone you know who has a student, a scholar, or a media professional in their life on FJ or I visas. That share might be the most important thing you do today. This is Vaishnavi and you are listening to Radio Nyra. Hello Vaishnavi program. Thank you.